The universe is a dangerous place, but in our future, one website fights to make it safe. With Trek News Live, hope lives again.
Hello, my name is Andy Robison from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Garrick, and you are watching TrekNews.de. Evil gets an upgrade.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Robison.
Oh, you guys. It's always the camera people that are the pain in the... Yeah, right. Anyway, how are we this evening? Are we okay? Yeah, not bad, right? All right, good. I actually don't know. I don't know where to begin. Irene, where should I begin? At the beginning, and go through to the end and stop. That's from Alice in Wonderland. I just, I am running this program at the University of Southern California. It's an actor training program. And I took the two Alice books, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and I adapted it for my students. And it was a rather extraordinary thing. We all went down the rabbit hole, if you know Alice in Wonderland, and we had a great trip. I've reinvented myself since I can't even remember the last time I've done any kind of convention, anything that's been associated with Star Trek. And as I say, it's been so long since I've put on the mask. I even forgot what my book was about. Not really. No, not. I'm not that bad. I'm not that over the hill and decrepit. But I have reinvented myself with this program. A few years ago, I was given the offer to create an actor training program, a conservatory program at the university that conferred an academic degree, an MFA, to people. As somebody asked me earlier, do I think that an academic degree is worth anything for an actor? And I said, absolutely not. Unless you can't get work as an actor and you want to teach, then it does help to have a degree. But I've been, creating this program has been one of the biggest challenges of my life. It's been exhausting. It's a 3-year program. People have to have graduated from a university, had to have an undergraduate degree to come to it. And then they spend 3 years learning how to become, it sounds kind of pompous, but it is a rigorous training program. And it really just basically comes from the work that I've done that has created all the things that I've always felt about acting and what I feel about what an actor is and what an actor can do. And the people on Star Trek who I felt were the most effective actors were those actors who were trained, who could get beyond the mask, as someone said earlier. That's essentially what we're doing. I'm turning them all into little Garricks. They all walk around with secrets and strange smiles. Anyway, yeah. God, this is amazing. It's like I thought. Well, it's like riding a bicycle. I get back on a bicycle and I'd start riding again. But this is extraordinary. Tell me, what if anybody has any questions? Help to prime the pump here. If anybody, why have you come here to see me? I'm this old teacher now. It's. Please, I mean, are there questions? I mean, that you have that you'd like to ask me? Yes, please. Yes. Yes, the very first Dirty Harry. No, yes. Yes. Well, you know, because in 1972, when that movie came out, 1971, there really had never been the young lady refers to that first Dirty Harry that I did with Clint Eastwood. It's interesting too because now there is a whole new DVD edition that's coming out with that of that first film, and I've been doing a lot of publicity, about it. There was never a character that people had seen in film before that. I mean, that was the first kind of truly psychotic, out of control, psychopathic mass murderer, and plus he didn't have very nice table manners either. But I think it was because I attracted a lot of, and I went into that character, and I really did. It was work that I'm very proud of, and it was very difficult too, you know, to move into that psyche and to basically transform yourself into someone who could do that sort of thing. Because obviously, if I'm going to fake it and it's just bullshit, nobody's going to be terribly interested in it, and it's not going to make anybody, you know, not eat their popcorn. But because I went there, I think there were certain people, very sick people, who became attracted to it. And other people, for whatever reasons, decided that when there was one phone call that unfortunately Irene answered the phone at home, and it's amazing to me. I mean, even now as I think of it, I don't understand why. I have no idea. You know, but some people can't tell the difference between what's real and what is imagined, and I'm afraid there are a number of those among us. Anyway, yeah, but it was work. I was very proud. It was my first film, and I had never worked on a film before. And I thought I treated it like, you know, it was any other kind of job, you know, like it was a theater piece, and I was, you know, trained for the theater. And when you do a role, you invest yourself, you submerge yourself in that role, and I did. Submerging oneself into a role. Acting for me, and this is one of the things that I begin with my students, acting is about transformation. It's not an innocent profession, if you understand what I mean. You really do have to go to parts of your psyche that are disturbing, and you have to admit that they are there. If you're playing a killer, you have to identify with what part of you can even imagine taking another person's life. I mean, we are so desensitized that we read about all these murders. I mean, I'm talking about we Americans because we're in a foreign country now, killing all kinds of innocent people. And the only body count that we are counting are the number of our soldiers who are being killed. But the 4,000 and some, I mean, that's bad enough. That 4,000 plus of our soldiers are being killed, but how many countless tens and tens and tens and perhaps hundreds of thousands of civilians are being killed? We're so desensitized about that. This is the thing that's really disturbing, that we no longer have an empathetic an ability to imagine what it means to take another person's life. And as an actor, that's what you have to do. In Dirty Harry, that was my first real experience with having to go to that place. And it was very disturbing. I mean, I was kind of an innocent here. Is everything okay out there? Yeah, fine, good. I mean, you're good. That's great. All right. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can go to pleasant places too. You know, wacky places. You know, happy places. You know, mysterious places. But you have to go to all of them, and you have to be flexible enough to be able to go to all of them. And you have to do a self-investigation and know who you are before you can do these things, you know, as an actor. And that's basically what transformation is about. And you can transform your body. And this is one of the things that one of my great influences was a Polish teacher and director by the name of Jerzy Grotowski, who basically taught me that I could change my body in such a way that I could become the character physically. And it's true, you can. But it takes training. Anyway, please. What else? Yes?
Yes, Garrick often has very important parts in Space Nine. So it's an episode, I don't know if you remember, in the Pale Moonlight.
In the Pale Moonlight, yes. Yes.
So he saves the lives of the whole partner. What was it? Some kind of feeling to play a man who lives the lives of the whole gamma quadrant in killing a senator.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Germans have the word for it. Did you Realpolitik? I mean, that's what In the Pale Moonlight is all about. It's about Realpolitik, and it's about Cisco's naivete, which is an American naivete. You think that you can just sort of like engage in a war, and it's going to be bloodless. You can sit behind you can sit behind a console and push buttons, and through a video screen, you can see these tracers, and there are these little explosions, and that it's nothing is happening except that you're hitting these targets with these weapons, and you don't experience any of the blood and so forth. And what Garrick was teaching, I think, Cisco in the Pale Moonlight, is that there are consequences. You have to get dirty if you want to go to war, and you need to kill. And it was actually, that's one of my three favorite episodes. Yeah, I thought it was a great episode. And it was, that episode of In Pale Moonlight, that was a great example of, I thought what those episodes of Star Trek could do. That they took these themes, I think these very important themes, and they explored them. That even though we are several hundred years in the future, we are still human beings, and we're still doing the same things, really, that we're doing today, at our peril often. Yeah, The Wire was another one of my favorite episodes, which is, dealt with obviously something else, with addiction, and what you put into yourself to get you through very difficult times in your life. Yes, please. No, when they first hired me to get Siddig involved in the show, I was just there as Siddig's caddy, just as sort of like his, because they had no storyline for Dr. Bashir, so they needed to create some kind of storyline for Bashir. So they figured, well, we'll get this old Cardassian spy who's a tailor, or is he a spy, and whatever, and we'll see how they get along. Of course, Sid and I got along great, and so basically, and I thought it was just going to be, like a job that was going to last for one episode. I mean, what was that, 1993, 92, and here it is 2008, and I can't believe, this is the thing that blows my mind. I can't believe I'm still here talking, about this thing. And I got to tell you, this show turned my life around. turned my life around. I started directing when I was doing this show, not just directing, episodes of Star Trek, but directing in the theater as well. And it was out of the directing and then the success I had directing and various awards and so forth, that basically I got this job that I'm doing now at the university. But it came out of Star Trek. This is the thing that is mind-numbing to me. I mean, it all came out of Star Trek, which is why I really have an amazing loyalty to this show and to that character. And it was an absolute demonstration of the power of the imagination, the writer's imagination and my imagination putting this character together. Because I'm sure you've heard this story before, but I tell it to my students. I got this script. I had no idea what a Cardassian was. None whatsoever. It could have been a hot dog, that walked and talked, And I went and I made some intuitive choices. I just went in there and I just started doing stuff. I started doing stuff, and started reading the thing and playing with it and whatever. And they gave me the job. Then I show up that morning, early in the morning, and they start slapping this crap all over me. And then not only that, but they take the material that they make rugs out of, heavy material to beef me up, to make me look huge. And I was getting, claustrophobic and I was sweating and I was nauseous. I was really getting sick. I thought, this is horrible. I can't do this. And then I stood in front of a mirror after they were done, and I looked, and you talk about transformation, it was a whole other creature. I knew who the character was. I have no idea why. I knew who this person was. And from then on, it was a joy. It wasn't a joy getting up, going into a makeup chair at 4:30 in the morning and having cold glue slapped on my face. That was horrible. And then there was, of course, the morning when they were slapping cold glue on my face, and Armin was sitting next to me, and we were talking, and then the earthquake hit, and that was even worse. And then everybody ran away, leaving cold glue and the stuff on me. Armin and I driving home in Los Angeles in the dawn with stuff on our face. It was true. It was true. Because everybody freaked out and just ran away and left us with our prosthetics. So really, they're one of the most amazing things. You never know it. When I was a kid and I got a scholarship to go to England to study acting. I had no idea that, if somebody told me that I was going to be on a science fiction show, with pieces of rubber glued to my face, I would have thought, well, I guess I've failed as an actor. It ain't Hamlet. It's not King Lear. Not Romeo, it's a guy with rubber on his face, But it ends up being one of the most amazing experiences of my life and changed my life. Yes. Go ahead. What is it? Please. Yes. I think it is easier I think it is much easier to work with a director who's been an actor. There's a simpatico. There's an understanding. Most directors who have not been actors have no idea what the process is. The thing is, it's a very weird, you don't have to stand up, it's very polite of you, but thank you. It's a very weird process about this. Nobody understands. Acting really is. I know I'm on my high horse here, but this is what I do now. This is what I do. So you have to suffer along with me for a while. It is a craft. It is a craft. It's not something, I know that with television, you grow up with television and you look at this little screen and you see all these people and you figure, I can do that. What's the big deal about that? And for the most part, you're right. You could do that, because most television is just crap. you know, and the people there are just sort of like posing. Hi, Jane. I'm glad to see you again. Have a drink? Yes, Jack, I'd love to have a drink. Your place or mine? I mean, you know, I mean, it's sort of like, you know, or stick him out, buddy. And, oh, no, please. You know, I mean, it's the usual stuff. But you can tell the difference between somebody who's doing that and somebody who's doing something else. Where suddenly you're doing something, you're making your drink or you're cooking your eggs and something, and then something happens, and then you start watching it and you can't stop watching it. And there's something else that's going on. It's the difference between moving forward and then, you know, and being engaged with something, or just sitting back, you know, and sort of like half asleep and thinking about whatever it is that we think about when we're half asleep. It is a craft. And it's a craft that nobody really understands except the actor, because it's not about it's not about learning an instrument. It's not about, you know, having a brush in your hand and a canvas in front of you. It's not even about like how to sing, because there's a certain technique to sing. It's about something else, and it's a thing I come back to, and that's why I think Irene asked me, you know, to go further with this. It's like how because this is the instrument right here. This is the instrument. This is what we use. That's it. It's what we use, and even the words that we're given, and there can be great words. Or they can be shitty words. It doesn't make any difference. But the words have to come inside of us and have to become a part of us. The words have to come through us. If the words are just sort of like repeated or recited, you know, then of course that kills any kind of illusion. So it's. I mean, I'm in the middle of this because my program next year will have its third class coming in. I've had to create this curriculum for 3 years and a progression to the curriculum. So where do you begin with? I had to begin at the beginning. And the beginning is, okay, here it is. Here's the body. How do we get inside our bodies? Because most of us, really, we don't inhabit our bodies. We kind of sit next to our bodies and we kind of watch ourselves, or or parts of our bodies are foreign countries. You know, actors, you know, people will come to the program and they live from here up, or other people will live here down, and this is a foreign country. I mean, so there are splits that happen to us, and so how do we integrate the various parts of our bodies so that the organs are talking to each other, so that our mind and our solar plexus, our chi, so all of that is integrated. It's amazing. It's an amazing process. And it does take 3 years. At first I thought, how the hell am I going to do this over 3 years? But I realized 3 years ends up being a very short time to learn a very complicated, intricate craft. And that's the thing that's amazing. The third year, next year, as I say, will be the third year. And the culmination of that third year is they're doing 3 plays in a repertoire. So 3 plays at the same time. So they're going to have 3 characters. They're going to have 3 characters that are going to be inhabiting them at the same time, which is the culmination. That really is the graduation. If you can keep 3 characters in your instrument, so that one night you do this character, the other night you do that character, and one night you do this character. And they're all 3 completely different people. And I can't wait to get back to acting myself. I'll tell you, what I have learned on this. I'm doing a play this summer, as I said, in San Francisco, and I can't wait, but I'm also scared shitless. Because I realize, and my students they're all going to come and see me, and I realize, oh my God, They're going to come and see me, and they're going to see what a fraud I am. Oh, my teacher's a bad actor. Which will never happen. Well, anyway, but it's really interesting. Anyway, yeah, boy, please, sir. Oh, it's the hardest thing in the world, watching yourself. Oh, Jesus, it's like, it's funnily enough, I mean, the first time I actually watched myself like that was when I did Dirty Harry. And then I was invited to a screening at Warner Brothers in Burbank. And I sat down in the screening room with Irene, and the film started. And I couldn't believe who was this monster that was up there. And the director's wife and a friend of hers were there. And they made it worse because they were going, "Oh no! Oh! That's horrible! That's terrible!" And I'm watching it, and I can't believe how monstrous this person is. And then later, with the same film, I took my son, who was then, I think, 10 years old, and we went to Times Square. And in those days, Times Square was not the Disney experience that it is now. Times Square was really raunchy. It was down and dirty. And so we went to this, and we decided, I'll take him to Times Square, and we'll go to this big movie theater, and we'll watch Dirty Harry. And at the time, I was doing a play at Lincoln Center, so my head was shaved bald. So we walked into the theater, we sat down, and as we went on, and believe me, in those days, the audiences in Times Square, it was rough, very rough. And as the film went on, you felt this sort of groundswell and these murmurs. And people were screaming and it was amazing. And I'm sitting there with Stevie and holding hands, and I'm thinking, "Oh my Jesus, what is going on here?" And then there was a cathartic moment. And when the Scorpio killer is finally, Clint Eastwood finally kills the Scorpio killer and goes into the water, there was this cheer that went up in the audience, and people actually got up and were screaming and shaking their fists. And I grabbed Stevie and I said, "Come on!" And Stevie was the kid, by the way, who he was in the movie at the end. He was the one who was fishing on that dock that I was holding as a hostage. And of course, he couldn't wait to see himself. So he thought he was going to be in more of the movie. I said, "No, that's it. You're not going to be seen again. Come on." He said, "No, I want to see. No, we got to get out of here. Got to get out." I was afraid they were going to see me and lynch me on 42nd Street. I was convinced that was going to happen. We ran out of there. That was the worst example of that. It wasn't like sitting around with a lot of my friends and watching it. It was like a lot of my fellow psychopaths. No, they're perfectly nice people. Just very demonstrative, that's all. But no, it's very hard to watch myself. It really is. Very hard. No, I never did. No. I wouldn't even tell, sometimes I wouldn't even tell Irene when an episode of a television show, especially if it was a television show that I hated, like the A-Team. I wanted to pretend I was somebody else. Once did an episode, I actually mentioned this earlier. I did two episodes, because somebody told me that they were doing a revival of the A-Team, which blows my mind, because it was such an awful show to begin with. And then I did two episodes of that, and then after I did the second episode, I literally quit the business. Literally, I decided that's it. That's it. This is about as shallow and as juvenile and as stupid as it gets. And if this is the only life I have, I'd just as soon do something else. And I did. We sold the house in Los Angeles and moved out to the mountains in the country and lived there for several years. And I did other things, but eventually came back. Can't help it. It's an addiction. Talk about addiction. Yes, sir.
You said that an actor has to use his body to convince his role. Is there any chance that we can expect a good or great disabled actor? Someone like Christopher Reeve, who's in a wheelchair, is still a fantastic actor.
Absolutely. And you know, even if the actor is disabled, if the actor is in his or her body, you know, being in the body doesn't mean I stand up here and I wave my arms and I gesticulate a lot. You know, that's not acting. That's me just sort of like acting out, you know, and whatever. But if one is really living inside one's body, one can be as still as a snake, and it will be a very powerful thing, because you are inside and you know from where you are speaking. And you know what you're feeling. No, it's not necessarily being, you know, a gymnast who talks, which is, yeah, boring. It is boring. Absolutely. I'll be more still now. Be more still. Shoot. Yes, please. 1, 2. No, they would. That, you know, you're right. I had never thought of that, but they were all sort of like. Yeah, no, I mean that was total coincidence. Ira Bear, who was the executive producer on Deep Space Nine, got so angry with me because looking for Parmak in all the wrong places. That was my very first one, and so I was very green. I was very unsure of myself when I was directing it. And there was a love scene between Michael, what's Michael's last name? Thank you. Michael Dorn and Terry, and they were rolling around on the floor, and I said, you know, come on, you guys got to kiss, and they wouldn't. They were just kind of rolling around and playing. So I finally said, all right, well, it's a love scene where nobody kisses. You know, and we just cut out at certain point. Ira was livid. He said, whoever heard of a love scene where you don't kiss? They had to kiss. And I said, oh, okay. I didn't realize that was a rule, you know. But I think, where was it? Oh, I know what it was. In the rehearsal, they kissed, and I think the prosthetics started sticking to each other. And as they removed, the prosthetics sort of like, and so they decided they didn't want to do that anymore. Ira didn't know that. He sits up in his office and writes these scripts. I mean, well, I liked it. Yeah, I liked it too, and I think I liked it only because I didn't know what I was doing. So it had this sort of unpredictable quality to it, you know. Oh yeah, well, put the camera over there. Put the camera. Yeah, you know. And, you know, it's sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, you come up with some interesting things. But that's not how some people, especially producers, feel. Yes? What is the third one? The Wire, and certainly in Pale Moonlight. Oh, thank you, with Odo. Thank you. Oh God, that's right. That was lovely because of the thing between Garak and Odo that happened, and Garak torturing Odo, and then suddenly Garak having for the first time, I think, that empathetic reaction. That what is he doing? He has feelings for this person, and he's hurting him, and I thought that was really it was a wonderful thing to play. I mean, and it was a wonderful revelation for the character. Thank you very much. Very good. God, just ask yourselves the questions, you know, and then I'll stand here and smile, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, when I was a kid, I would go to these movies, because I did not grow up with a television set. So I'd go to these movies, and I was a weird little kid, you know. I was truly strange, and you know, and very unhappy, in horrible circumstances, blah 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 blah. So, but my escape though was going to the movies. So I lived in this awful city called Hartford, Connecticut, in New England, and it was they call it the insurance capital of the world. I mean, can you imagine how exciting the insurance capital of the world is? And it was really dreary after the war, and you know, every place was, of course, dreary after the war. So the only place you could go, but they used to have these big, in America, they used to have these big, beautiful movie theaters, the Loews Poli Palace. You know, they had these grand names, and they were really great places. And I would sneak into these movies all the time. And I would watch these people up on the screen, on the big screen too, because that's the thing about not having grown up with television. I would watch these big, giant, heroic-sized figures. And I really did think that these people came from another world, that these people were very special, and that they were bred and taught to act in these movies and these things. And somebody then once asked me, when I was very young, he said, would you like to be an actor? And I said, no, of course not. That's not for me. I come from someplace else. So those people who do acting, they come from a special place. And in a sense, I always had that attitude. And even when I went to drama school, I got a Fulbright, which was a very distinguished thing to get, because I couldn't have afforded to go to British drama school. And even when I went there, and I went through the training there, and I came back, there was no way I ever thought of myself as ever being in movies. Because, again, in New York, we're stage actors, and those people who were in movies were in the West, in this place called Los Angeles. And there was no way I was ever going to do that. And it was the Dirty Harry, when basically, by a fluke, I got a meeting with the director, Don Siegel, of Dirty Harry, who, in 15 minutes, and I had no idea. I had no idea really what it was about, except I knew it was about a movie. And then he said, well, it was nice to meet you, and that was nice to meet you too. And I thought, well, that's it. And then 2 weeks later, Clint Eastwood shows up at this play that I'm doing. And everybody is crazy, you know, in the theater. My God, Clint Eastwood here, Clint Eastwood here. You know, the man with no name, Sergio Leone, the spaghetti Western guy, you know. And so he shows up, and he leaves at intermission. And so, and everybody's looking at me and saying, poor Andy, it looks like he didn't get the job. He left the theater. Well, he left the theater because the woman he was with had this rabbit coat. It was in the winter. And somehow, as they were coming into the theater, a lit cigarette got inside her rabbit coat. And during the first act, the entire theater smelled horribly. And at the time, I was on this weird macrobiotic diet, and I used to fart a lot, and all the actors were looking at me and accusing. I said, no, I swear to God, it's not me, it's something else that's going on, you know? And that's why they left at intermission, because the poor woman's coat was smoldering, and the theater was stinking. But and then I got the offer to do this thing, and I thought, I really was. You want to talk about Alice in Wonderland? That was me, totally. And not knowing what I was doing, again, it's another variation of sometimes when you don't know what you're doing, you know, interesting things happen. I mean, it's almost like God gave me a free one, you know, that I did not know what I was doing with that film. Except I did know what I was doing. I always knew how to create a character. And basically the director was a very sensitive and very smart man, and framed his character in framed his picture in such a way so that he would get the evolution of this strange creation. I don't know what that's all about, where that came from, but there you have it. Anyway, yes. It's really, it's an out-of-mind experience being here and talking about this. I mean, it's really extraordinary. Again, because I have not, anyway, it doesn't make any difference. Who else? Yes, please, sir.
Yes, how was acting and working together with Mark Emanuel and Jeffrey Combs? Are they in real life similar to Mayun and
Mark Alimo is Gul Dukat. Thank you very much. Yeah, you could tell I was like, no. And Jeffrey Combs can play anything. If you ask him to okay, Jeffrey, you're this glass of water now, and so Jeffrey Combs will become a glass of water for you. He's amazing. You want to talk about a transforming actor. And Mark has this, puts on that Gul Dukat thing, and there's this, ooh, you are creepy, pal. I mean, really, it's truly one, but also kind of like, compelling. You can't take your eyes off of him. The two of them, they're great. They're great. That's the thing about, that show. Those are trained actors. I think more than any other Star Trek show. I mean, the actors on Deep Space Nine, I don't know why this happened. I think it was Ira Bear. The actors who were on that show really were all stage actors. I mean, truly stage actors. Otherwise, as one of these gentlemen said earlier, there's no way you can get past the mask. I mean, projection, how you project a character. It's one of the great teachers that I use, and I use his work with my students, is a Russian by the name of Michael Chekhov. And Michael Chekhov was the nephew of the great Russian playwright Anton Chekhov. And Michael Chekhov talked about expanding one's presence, and there is a there is a way, there is a technique. There's a craft where you can take your presence and you can expand it. You can expand it so that it fills whatever room you're in, so that you inhabit the entire room, and in such a way that even before you step on a stage, your presence can be on that stage before you, and you just enter into your presence. And it's forgot what my point was, but what was my point? Where I was leading to someplace. Oh, thank you very much, and thank you very much. Yeah, I'm telling you, you are a great. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, getting past your mask, and so you could see some of these young actors who would come in to do the show, and all these prosthetics would be put on them, and they would shrink. They would die, behind that mask. Here's your chance to really get some weird information. Yes, please. Yeah, Armin, who is a good friend and who is, again, another trained actor. As a matter of fact, he and Kitty did something interesting this past year. Armin decided that how he hadn't done a play in a long time, and he thought, how can I call myself an actor if I haven't been on a stage in a long time? So he and Kitty left Los Angeles for several months and moved to New York, and basically just in an attempt and a successful attempt to get work as a stage actor, which he did. But Armin, again, there was I can't remember the episode, but there was a scene that we call the root beer scene. And we got this scene, and it's Quark and Garrick talking about root beer. Root, you know, it's that drink, that soda. And it made no sense. And we're doing the scene and we're thinking, what is this scene about? It's about nothing. And when a scene is about nothing, it's really hard to learn the lines because you don't know why you're learning the lines. You know, because it's about nothing. So finally, we broke down and we said to the director, who was this guy Jim Conway, who was getting really pissed off at us because he wanted to get the scene over with. He wanted to get the scene over with. You know, another guy who was never an actor and who just figured, you know, just say the lines. You know, and you don't understand. You just can't say the lines. You know, you got to understand what the hell they're about. So finally, Ira came down, and Ira's pissed. And this is, you know, and very rarely, you know, does it happen where the actors say, listen, bring a writer down. We got to do something with the scene. So they came down, and we thrashed it out. And it ended up being one of the best scenes because we talked about root beer, but what we were really talking about was... No, there's a plot point here, and I can't remember what the plot point is. But basically, you know, the root beer became, you know, the surface for what we were really talking about. I can't remember what we were really talking about. This is what I mean. See, that's exactly good man. Good man. Yes, it's exactly right. You know. That yes, it tastes good, but does it have any nutrition? Does it mean anything? You know, is it? And basically saying that the Federation at that point, because of the political circumstances, was as flat and as distasteful as the root beer was. But Armin was like, I don't know how he could put that thing on his head. That was the one that. I got scared every time he went into makeup. I'd see, oh no, they're going to put it on his head again, you know? But what a trooper, boy. He lived with it. I don't know how he could. And poor Renee couldn't move his face. I mean, because his makeup had to be seamless. It had to look like a stream. And so, you know, if he became too animated, then the thing would all crinkle up. So Renee, for 7 years, had to play this character with absolute facial stillness, which was a great exercise because then it created that character of Odo because that became something else. And that was the wonderful thing about the makeup and these. The makeup really did give you major direction on how to play the character. You couldn't play the character any other way than how the makeup dictated it. Yes, sir.
Makeup is perhaps another interesting theme. Is the makeup created before the makeup artist?
Yes, the makeup is created before. You know, because they have the species. You know, like a Cardassian looks like a Cardassian, a Ferengi looks like a Ferengi, and so forth. So the makeup is that's standard, and there are almost no deviations to it. Maybe there are 5 crinkles rather than 4. You know, and a Bajoran nose or something. You know. But yeah, you go in there and it's like you go in there and you get fitted for your species. Yes,
Trying to imagine what life is, what kind of life is between actors. Maybe first year between the movies, between the times you have the chance to work. You don't really know what will be the next movie, what will be the next chance. Did you have to move a lot, or did you have financial problems? I mean, for me, my job every month, some days it's good, some days it goes bad, but at the end of the month, I always know what money I will get, and I think it's what it would.
No, it was that's really, it's the hardest thing about being an actor, and it was the thing that I nearly caved into. It nearly did me in. And a friend of mine once said, especially when you go to California, where there's, we all went from New York to California because in New York you couldn't make a living. I mean, you could work a lot, you'd work a lot and you'd do a lot of plays for no money, because unlike, say here and in Europe, there's no subsidy. So essentially, it's all commercially driven. I mean, a play goes on and it either supports itself or it doesn't. And then oftentimes to do a play, you do it for no money because you just want to work. But then you have a family, you have kids, and you want to make a living. And so basically you go out to California where there's film and television industry and where you can work. However, as you say, the work comes when it comes. And sometimes for months at a time, it wouldn't come. And so I would get into trouble. Well, okay, I'll do a play. But then you're doing a play, and then you get a job offer, and you can't do it because you're in this play, because you can't bail out on people in the middle of a play. And so then you're neither fish nor fowl. You're not making a living, and you're not working. And it was horrible. And there were times when we were so desperately poor. I mean, where we were just trying to scrape together, the rent, to live. I mean, genuinely, and it's not uncommon. It's very common because essentially, again, it's sort of like so many generations now have grown up watching television, saying, "I can do that. I know I can do that. I can do that just as well as those people." So then everybody flocks to New York or to Los Angeles to become actors. So you have all these people who are calling themselves actors. And the market just becomes flooded with people, and I'm sorry. It's sad to say that the cream does not rise to the top a lot of the time. That the people who make television shows and movies often don't know the difference between what is a good actor and what is an actor that sort of like looks good, and they don't care. No, that's true. So it's like so the standards become debased. So it's a very confusing. It's very difficult, and it's one of the hardest things to try to talk to my students about. Because they're going to be leaving. My first graduating class is next year, and they're going to be leaving. The program, and they're going to be leaving, I think, as well-trained actors, and they're going to run into reality, which is the world is not waiting for well-trained actors necessarily. But it was the hardest thing for me to live with, absolutely, as an actor.
Next question. So, I think your work at the university now and with the students, and after all your success, I think your life is getting a bit more stable. So what are your future wishes and plans in the life after work?
Yeah, I'll never stop working. I think I'll probably do this at the university, run this program, because I mean, running it means, and those of you who are administrators know what I mean. It's the administration that is killing me. It's the writing, it's the reports, it's, the bureaucracy. That is murder. So I think I can do this for a couple more years, but then after that I go back to acting, and maybe maybe I would even like to have a theater of my own, not to run, but certainly to be the artistic director. I think that would be a very nice thing to do. But I've been very fortunate, I mean, I have no complaints. I've been very fortunate. I've had really a career that I am grateful for, and the opportunity to play some wonderful characters. Obviously, Garrick is one of them. Yes, I am. Yes. Thank you. And your name, madam, is? Madam. I'm doing an Irish play. It's a play I've always wanted to do. It's called A Faith Healer. Do you know what a faith healer is? There must be a German equivalent, a faith healer.
Wunderheiler.
Wunderheiler. A Wunderheiler. Okay, yeah, no, I understand now. Yeah. So, yes, a Wunderheiler. Someone who walks around. I know, I butcher every language, Not just, so don't feel. And he's an Irishman who goes through the British Isles, Wales, and Scotland, ends up in Ireland, and he's a drunk. And very early on in his life, he stumbled onto where he put hands on people and he cured them of major illnesses. But now when this play begins, he's not very successful. He's more of a drunk than he is a faith healer. And but once in a while he stumbles across and he does heal people. And it's a story of this man and his wife and his manager and the three of them just traveling around in this van, going from small town to small town to small town. They go into a hall, a school, some kind of room, and people come to them. And it's an amazing story. It really is. But the thing about this story that's wonderful is that the man is telling the story from the beyond because he's been killed. He's been murdered by people that he was not able to heal. And he comes back to tell this story because he's trying to find out what the source of his power was. And the investigation of his investigation, or his trying to understand where this came from, because occasionally, as he says, just occasionally, the miracle would happen. And he doesn't understand it. And he still doesn't understand it until he gets to the end of the play. And the end, and it's so beautifully written, the trajectory of the play. And when he gets to the end, he does come to an understanding, and it's really quite magical. And as I say, it's an enormous text. You want to talk about when you're talking about sitting at home and learning your lines. I've been learning these lines now for, I think, since December. I'm getting ready for this because it's a massive amount of text. And I haven't learned something this large in a long, long time. And I was afraid that, but thank you. It still works. It still works. Yeah. But I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled about getting back to acting because the thing is, working with these kids, I realize I'm thinking, God, yes, that's it. I want to do that. I want to do that. Absolutely. And it's what's wonderful about this is that I'm still on the learning curve. I am literally, as I'm working with my students, I'm still learning how to do it. And I can't wait to get back. It's like a horse getting back in the traces, Tell me have it. Yes, somebody had it. Yes.
Speaking of stage actors, have you already seen Patrick Stewart?
No, I haven't, but I heard he was wonderful.
Would you like to see him?
I would. I think he's going to. I think he is going to come. He may be coming out to Los Angeles. I think Armin told me he may be coming out to Los Angeles to do that. To that production. I hope he does, because but I also heard that it was a great production, too. That he was blessed with a really good director. No, well, the thing is about stage is that there are two things that it's so funny as I work with this, because there is a camera element to our curriculum. I mean, we have to teach camera acting to our students as well, especially being in Los Angeles. I mean, one of the reasons why they're coming to my program is because it is in Los Angeles. So we have to but there is a real difference between camera acting and stage acting. However, camera acting is, if you can act on stage, you've learned how to act. It takes adjustments to learn how to act for the camera, because you're basically doing the same thing. However, you're doing it in front of this mechanical apparatus rather than a live audience. The other major difference is because in theater, there's more of a chance of doing a great role. Unless you're a star in film, or you're the lead on a television show, or you get a really good role like a bad guy. Most of the roles in film and television are boring. I mean, they're really not terribly challenging. They're filler, because the scripts, for the most part, aren't great scripts. So once you go beyond the main characters, people just come in and they're just serviceable, if you know what I mean. They just fill a gap. They fill a role. Which doesn't mean that actors can't do good work with that. The best actors will take one of those small roles and make it, turn it into something. It will be a person. It will have life to it and breath. But still, no one's going to notice. And it's mainly because of the writing. You know, and it's because it's such a commercially driven industry. Basically, it's all about profit. There are very few, film and television projects that are being made in America that are being made from. Well, that's a whole other thing. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, 4 months, 3 weeks, in 2 days. Yeah, I don't know if you know this film that I'm talking about. It's about a woman looking for an abortion. Not a happy subject, but it's a great movie. No, well, and it's the problem. I mean, being an old Marxist, for me, it's the downside of the capitalistic, free enterprise system. If everything is geared towards profit, then that's the bottom line, and so that basically they'll do anything to. However, what Irene says though about this is a thing that really has upset me, and one of the reasons why I took this job at the University of Southern California was because it's true. British actors are really well trained. They have really good voices. They are confident. They have great work habits, and so they come to America and they are hired because they inspire a certain amount of confidence. And it's one of the things that I've taken very seriously in my program. I mean, essentially, that there's no reason why American actors shouldn't be as confident and as well trained as the Brits. I went and I studied in Britain, so I know how good their program is. I stole a lot from that program for my own, a lot. Because, and I think the Europeans, I think it's the same thing here. Because it's a different language, we don't get a chance to see German acting. But I know that in France, where Irene and I live part of the year, the French actors are, like the actors of the Comédie Française, they're brilliant. They're really great actors. And it's because there is a respect for the craft. And, and in England, going to acting school is like it's a trade school. If you want to learn brain surgery, you go to the school that teaches brain surgery. If you want to learn shoemaking, you go to the school that teaches shoemaking. It's the same thing. It's a trade. It's a craft. And you go and you learn it. And I don't know why in America we don't have that attitude, about our work. It's an odd thing, but again, I come back to the economics of it. That's what I mean about being a Marxist. It's the only thing that makes sense to me. Why we don't take it more seriously? because we want to make a profit from it. So for you capitalists here, I don't apologize. Yes? Oh, yeah. The reason European movies aren't as successful in the U.S. because we are phobic about subtitles. It's the weirdest thing. Well, we have no patience with subtitles. I mean, I love subtitles. I mean, it sort of like keeps me busy. And especially if it's a good film, it doesn't make any difference. So what? There's some writing at the bottom, but it's only those those few films, those few foreign films that for some reason have some wide appeal, will break that prejudice. But for the most part, it's like that's the reason. I'm on the Foreign Film Committee at the Academy, the people that choose those Academy Award things, which is all nonsense anyway. It's one big publicity, one big commercial. However, the great thing about being a member of the Academy is that I'm on that Foreign Film Committee, and I get to see all the foreign films that are submitted to the Academy for the Foreign Film Oscar. And they're the best films I see. They're amazing films. Films that come from South America or Eastern Europe or Asia. I mean, it's extraordinary stuff. There's an energy, there's a vitality, because they're making stories. They're telling stories about things that matter, important things. They're people. It's a matter of life and death to tell these stories. They're about stories. They're not about the goddamn technology. It's not about moving the fucking camera around and being really smart and being really, clever about how you can use your tools and your toys, which is what we've fallen into. They're about stories. They're about the stories of people like us, not these idiotic, muscle-bound, big-breasted, idiotic, no-brained kind of human beings. They are human beings that have empathy and compassion and talking about serious things, about the things that mean. That's one of the things about this election, too, that's going on, that we're about to face. It's like, even now, and I'm a blatant Obama guy. I pray that Obama can get elected. But the thing is that even our attitude towards Obama, we want to sort of like turn him into a movie star. We want to make him into a celebrity, rather than someone who can truly effect a kind of political and social change that we desperately need at this point. And we're at a real crossroads here. It's a real crisis point. What's going on? I mean, we are in more trouble than anybody knows, than even we will admit. There's enormous amount. We're being bankrupt by this vicious, evil war. I mean, our systems, our financial systems are breaking down. The corporate greed is out of control. They've become a government unto themselves, that basically our so-called elected government is just simply serving. So there is enormous changes that have to be made. And the thing is about what I said earlier about acting not being an innocent profession, art is not an innocent profession. Art has the absolute obligation to reflect the world as it is and the world where it's going. And if we're constantly going to live in this juvenile, sentimental fantasy land that we, talking about Americans, are living in terms of our work, then we're not doing anybody any service. All we're doing is that it's just opiate for the masses. It's just drugs, just so we don't have to, And that's what I love about those films that I see, those foreign films that come in. They're made on a shoestring. They're made for no money. And yet it's like some of them are wrenchingly beautiful. Just deeply disturbing and amazing and life-affirming in the end, because they're telling the truth. And the truth is always, as far as I'm concerned, life-affirming. Jesus. See what you started? It's your fault. No, 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 no. We're not going. We're not going there. Yes, please. No, I can't do that anymore. I can't do that. I can't do this anymore. We gotta go back to what we're talking. Okay. I didn't say that there weren't. No, these are a bunch of dummies. They think that, the great Satan is upon us. No, of course there are, Irene. I'm talking about the systems. The systems are breaking down. Yes, please.
Another topic I wanted to ask, you are resident gardener?
Yes.
Is this year a good year for gardening?
Oh, this is a great year for gardening because we finally got rain. And the gardens, and all over Southern California, and in the desert. If you've ever, I don't know if any of you have ever been into the American Southwest desert, but in the spring, around Easter, just before Easter, if there has been rain over the winter, there is the deserts were just carpeted with these beautiful flowers of all colors. And there was one the place was the yellow. I mean, it was like this yellow sort of like, and the desert I think is an incredible place. I mean, not in the summer. Forget that. I mean, but in the winter and in the fall, the winter, the spring. I mean, it's exquisitely beautiful. And this year, thank God, because the year before we had a drought. But we're in trouble in Southern California about water. I mean, it's not. Yeah, we did. We used to have a lawn, and then they realized that was indulgence, so got rid of that and put in some native plants, which we should have done years ago. Yes, sir. Thank you. I think, I'll tell you why I don't think there was. I think that Rick Berman, God bless him, it was his least favorite show. We were always like the kind of like ugly stepchild of the franchise. And I think the reason for that is because the stories and the characters in Deep Space Nine, they weren't black and white. There was a very gray, ethically, morally gray thing about it, and there was more complications. It wasn't as simple as, the one night stands on planet to planet and going there and fighting bad aliens and solving the problems of the planet and then shooting off and going into the next place. I really think that there was an attitude that Deep Space Nine really wasn't true to the Gene Roddenberry Star Trek vision, which I would bet money that Gene Roddenberry would have really have liked that show. I would bet money on it because I think it, as I said earlier, those shows like In Pale Moonlight and Wire and were really issue driven. They were small stories about small important stories, and they meant something. Yes, ma'am. There won't be a second book. No. I'm afraid that was it. That book came out of, my writing about Garrick so I could figure out who he was. And so, by the end of the series, I had all this material that I had been writing about Garrick. And that's I just put it, because I wrote it in a diary kind of form. And it's an old actor tool, when you don't know what you're doing, you basically start creating the biography of the character and what the character's circumstances and the context of the character. And that's where that book came from. Does anybody know who wrote Hyperion? Do you know the book I'm talking about? Dan? No, okay. It's a book that I've read recently, and it was very, very interesting. I couldn't think of the name of the author. No. What? No, it's not. That's not important. Yes, there was a hand that was floating in space up here. Yes.
Jumping back to films with subtitles, earlier we talked about the director, Clint Eastwood. What did you think when you heard for the first time that Clint Eastwood was making a film about Iwo Jima completely in Japanese?
I thought it was one of the best films he's ever done. And I thought it was amazing that an American director did that. You know, and actually I got a chance to, you know, I've been trying to get him involved in my program, and I got a chance to say that to him because I thought it was a wonderful film. But to do it, an American doing a film in subtitles, I thought that was, and for Clint to do it too, which was a delicious irony. Me? My life has been a risky film. I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, you know, my life is subtitles. And didn't you see the subtitles that are running down here? You know, what he really means is, you know, I mean, that's Garrick too. Garrick should have had subtitles. You know, I mean, that would. Yeah, no, I absolutely. I'm crazy. You know, do my Alice in Wonderlands and. Go down the rabbit hole as much as I can. Listen, I think, you know, I've worn these people out, you know, and I thank you very much. And I thank you also for you know, propping up my lagging memory and my failing mind. Thank you. Really, it's been a pleasure.
Einen großen Applaus für Andy Robison.